Regina George was a work of art, a masterpiece sculpted from social anxieties and weaponized compliments. She was a general commanding an army of insecure teenagers, using psychological warfare to maintain an empire built on pink shirts and fear. Her cruelty was subtle, her methods were surgical, and her impact was iconic. The villains of Mean Girls 2 put super glue on a scooter seat. In terms of looks, they're also a 10 out of 10, but they're not attractive. At least on the inside. In his video analysis of Mean Girls 2, Alex Myers says,
"If you haven't seen this movie before, don't bother."
But I didn't listen. Today, we're not just reviewing this thing, we're dissecting it. We're putting on our surgical hats to figure out what went so horribly wrong. It's a cautionary tale about how to take a work of genius and follow it up with a sequel that can only be described as a pile of trash. Before we dive into the car wreck that is Mean Girls 2, let us pay our respects. We need to start by investigating why the original Mean Girls wasn't just a movie, but a pop culture phenomenon. A brilliant, clever screenplay by Tina Fey, Mean Girls investigates the jungle of teenage girlhood, the complicated social rules, and brutal psychological warfare that happens behind people's backs. The genius of the film can be credited to its characters and commentary. Katie Heron, having been homeschooled in Africa her whole life, looked at North Shore High School from the point of view of a girl raised by wildlife biologists. Her struggle to adapt certainly had its obstacles, needless to say.
My what?
And, of course, there's no talking about Mean Girls without mentioning Regina George. She wasn't just a simple bully, she was a master manipulator, a queen bee who ruled not with fists, but with carefully deployed approval and disapproval. A compliment from her could make your entire week, and one wrong look could get you socially executed. She turned compliments into weapons, fake friendships, and understood that in girl world, you had to be sneaky. The script is a fortress of iconic lines.
Too gay to function. So fetch.
This is Susan from Planned Parenthood.
Regina George is flawless.
So if you're from Africa, why are you white?
These aren't just funny phrases, they're part of our language now. Memes before memes were even a thing. The humor wasn't just slapstick, it came from the characters and their painfully relatable flaws. It was smart, it was layered, and it trusted the audience to get the joke. And finally, the movie had a message. The ultimate evil wasn't really Regina George, but the whole system of meanness that she represented. A system that Katie, while trying to destroy it, ironically becomes a part of herself. The lesson wasn't that there are good girls and mean girls, the lesson was that anyone can become a mean girl when you get a little taste of popularity and power. The film ends not with a simple victory, but with a fragile peace treaty, an understanding that the jungle never really goes away, and that everyone's better off being themselves. That delicate, smart, and hilarious ecosystem is the legacy, and it's that legacy that Mean Girls 2 drags behind the bleachers and completely demolishes. When Mean Girls 2 starts, right away we can tell that something is seriously wrong. The film looks cheap, sterile, like a Disney Channel movie that really wishes it was edgier. Our new main character is Jo Mitchell, and the movie is desperate for you to know that she's a cool girl. How do we know? Because she rides a Vespa, takes a woodshop class, and literally says things like,
No girl drama.
This brings us to the movie's first catastrophic failure, the murder of Show, Don't Tell. The original movie showed us Katie's awkwardness and intelligence. This sequel just has its characters announce their personality traits like they're reading a grocery list. Jo is the living embodiment of the I'm not like other girls trope, which is a cardinal sin in storytelling because it makes a character instantly unrelatable and honestly pretty boring. And let's not forget to mention what I believe is also a major cardinal sin. This sequel doesn't even bring back a single character from the original movie, except for Principal Duval, played by Tim Meadows. Even more oddly, this North Shore High School is located in Ohio, not Illinois, like the original. Why, I don't know, but some sequel this is. But the moment where the whole thing just cracks is the inciting incident. In the original, Katie, Janice, and Damien team up because they're social outcasts who genuinely want revenge. It feels natural. In Mean Girls 2, the entire plot is kicked off by a business transaction. Abby Hanover, the school's unpopular rich girl, has a father who is so worried about her social life that he literally offers to pay Jo's entire college tuition just to be her friend. Jo, after some hesitation, accepts. Let's just let that sink in for a second. The entire emotional core of this movie is a paid friendship. This one plot point is so cynical and soulless it poisons every scene that follows. It completely removes any real stakes. Jo isn't fighting for social justice or getting personal revenge. She's just filling a work contract. This completely cheapens every interaction she has. It's not about two outcasts finding each other, it's about a girl doing a job she doesn't want for a paycheck. It's impossible to root for this. Then we meet the new Plastics. In the original, their introduction is iconic. They feel like royalty. In Mean Girls 2, we meet Mandi Wetterly and her two minions, the hypochondriac Hope and the ridiculously promiscuous Chastity. They don't get a cool introduction, they just show up and are immediately cartoonishly evil. This brings us to our first major lesson in how to ruin a movie: replace character with caricature. Regina George was a complex villain. Mandi Wetterly is a one-dimensional drawing of a rich bully. Her only personality trait is being mean. There's no charm, no mystique. While Regina ruled with psychological warfare, Mandi just throws tantrums, with her sidekicks being even worse. Gretchen Wieners was deeply insecure, and Karen Smith was hilariously dumb. Meanwhile, Hope is just afraid of germs, and dumb blonde Chastity has a raging libido. These aren't characters, they're walking tropes, and their total lack of depth makes it impossible to care about them as villains. As the movie stumbles through its second act, we see the anti-plastics form, which is Joe and Abby's counter-clique. And yes, they actually call themselves the anti-plastics. Whereas Katie, Janice, and Damien's schemes feel like a secret comedic high school spy mission, the anti-plastics feel more like a counter-revolutionary after-school club with a terrible name. Their goal is to take down Mandi, but the way they do it highlights the movie's second great failure: the death of subtlety. The original Mean Girls understood that high school fights are rarely face-to-face. It's a war of whispers, rumors, and social sabotage. The Bird Book was the perfect weapon, anonymous, devastating, and it spread like a virus. The pranks were psychological, like convincing Gretchen that fetch was never going to happen, or tricking Regina with high-calorie Caltine bars. Mean Girls 2 throws all that wit away for cheap, physical slapstick that feels like it belongs in a bad Saturday morning cartoon. The pranks are just lame. They put super glue on a scooter, they put espresso in a car engine, they hack a TV to show an embarrassing video. The conflict is just a series of direct attacks that feels more like a dumb prank war than the clever social combat of the original. This movie completely misunderstands that the mean in Mean Girls was about a specific kind of spiritual cruelty, not just being a vandal. This lack of subtlety spills into the dialogue, leading to our third lesson in failure: the unquotable script. The original film is a goldmine of iconic lines. It's endlessly quotable because the humor is smart, specific, and comes from the characters. Now I dare you, I double dog dare you to quote one single line from Mean Girls 2. You can't. You'll just be met with a blank stare. There's a scene where the plastics walk down the hall, and instead of showing their power subtly, they just physically block the entire hallway. It's a perfect visual for the movie's whole approach: clumsy, obvious, and totally devoid of cleverness. In every meaningful story, there is a build-up to a climax, the final obstacle the character must overcome as everything explodes. In Mean Girls, this is where Katie solves the final math question about limits, which is really telling her that there is no limit to her potential, even if she just chooses to be herself. This all happens after Regina photocopies the burn book and scatters it all throughout the hallway, forcing not only an animalistic riot as gossip and backstabbing explode, but also forcing Katie to reckon with the plastic that she has become. In Mean Girls 2, the grand climax that the entire film builds up to is a football game. Plastics versus anti-plastics. Yes, for real. We waste 60 minutes watching a social satire turn good versus bad sports movie. The conflict is not even about identity anymore. It's about who can score more touchdowns, with the backdrop being that Joe was framed for stealing the charity money, and her friends work behind the scenes to exonerate her. Again. Also, I thought football was for boys. This brings us to the most important point in this masterclass on how to ruin a movie: forget the point. In the original Mean Girls, Katie learns that she doesn't have to be cruel like Regina to earn popularity or be liked. At the Spring Fling, she dismantles the old system and makes peace with the rest of the school by breaking the tiara. The old system that controlled the school is now gone and completely remade. With Mean Girls 2, that entire message goes into a wood chipper. Mean Girls is a story about girls who use social dynamics and power to get their way, with a lesson that being yourself is infinitely better than trying to take down others in the pursuit of popularity.
The limit does not exist.
Mean Girls 2 is a story about back and forth bullying and cruel pranks. Basically, the core concept is good girls good, mean girls mean. And that's it.
Is that all you got? Going after my dad, you spoiled narcissistic bitch!
I'll give the filmmakers an F for story, maybe an F for effort too. Megan Martin, who plays Jo, has actually admitted that the film's production was rushed.
It's actually lots of fun. We shot the movie in 20 days. What? Which is like, is ridiculous for filming a movie. Like 20 days to shoot a movie is unheard of.
Well, that partly explains it. So anyway, after Mandi and Nick are arrested for framing Jo, there's no reflection on Jo's part other than lazy narrative dialogue. Her name is cleared, Abby becomes homecoming queen, Mandi and Nick are sentenced to community service, and Jo and Tyler live happily ever after, yada yada yada. This not only actively betrays the complicated reality that makes the original film so memorable, but it's also so simplistic that it's contradictory. Gloves. Let's figure out how to dissect this story and fix it. The storytelling definitely could have been better, but the real problem is the fact that this movie was marketed as a sequel to Mean Girls. Because of that alone, you're inevitably going to make comparisons to its far superior predecessor, and needless to say, there's no contest. The original Mean Girls is the kind of movie that's perfectly fine without a sequel, let alone a horrendously crappy one. If I were an executive under these circumstances, I would have marked Mean Girls 2 with a hard pass on it, or at least ordered that it be reworked as a separate film. Girls vs. Girls would have been a decent title, and this approach might have worked because Mean Girls 2 feels much like an original Disney Channel production, with one of the cast members actually having appeared on some Disney Channel productions in the past. But if you wanted to take it a step further, you could also give Mandi some more character depth rather than making her a typical cruel and spoiled rich kid. As for Hope and Chastity, maybe give them deeper, more involved subplots. Perhaps they could show reservations over Mandi's behavior and treatment of Jo and Abby. Perhaps they voice their discontent in a private conversation, or maybe publicly, albeit quietly. The story could have been much more compelling with greater stakes this way, and could have ultimately forced a deeper character change in Mandi, rather than her simply being relegated to community service and a loss of popularity after a football game. Mean Girls 2 isn't just a bad sequel, it's a cinematic tragedy. It's a film that copied the plot points of the original without understanding the soul that made them work. It took a story about psychological warfare and turned it into a story about lame pranks. It took complex, memorable characters and replaced them with one-dimensional stereotypes. It took a script overflowing with wit and genius and swapped it for flat, forgettable dialogue. It stands as a profound warning. You cannot recreate magic by just tracing its outline. A great film is a delicate balance of character, theme, and intelligence. Mean Girls 2 ignored all of that for a lazy, paint-by-numbers approach. The result is a film that isn't just unfunny and uninspired, it's a ghost, a hollow echo of a masterpiece that will forever stand as a monument to the art of catastrophically missing the point. It tried to sit at the cool table, but it forgot it wasn't allowed to wear sweatpants on Mondays. Am I being too harsh? Or is Mean Girls 2 really that bad? And more importantly, what do you think is the most soulless, soul-crushing sequel ever made? Let me know in the comments below. If you agree that some sequels are cinematic crimes, give this video a like and subscribe for more takedowns of movies that should never have been made, or at least should have been made differently. Thanks for watching, and stay fetch.